My name is Joseph Wunderlich. This is my portfolio for architecture, A&E, architecture and urban design, architectural engineering, urban design. I also have experience and education in computer engineering, but this portfolio will emphasize the architecture and with notes about the complementary high tech. So you'll see in blue, italics is where all the high tech in this portfolio is and how it complements, and summation of my experience and education. The exhibited works in this portfolio will be where the green asterisk is notated, and I'll go through these quickly right here, and then you can come back and take a look at them. But I won architectural awards since I was a young child and through schools, elementary and middle school and high school and college. Then did some significant work supervising large projects as well as small development projects of my own, where I worked my way up until into positions managing $100 million worth of real estate development and high-tech office parks. Also met CEOs of high-tech companies as a result. Had several things going on in parallel, working my way through school with some computer programs that I wrote and estimating business for buildings based on that. And I'll go into some of the details in this portfolio of some of that. Then some commissions, architectural commissions, design build commissions, sitting in critiques, visiting schools all along. I initially thought I would mix high tech with architecture in a graduate program, and I had talked to at Harvard. They let me sit in for a week and in the critiques too, and I met with the chair and a couple of professors, and they went through my portfolio, and they pretty much said, well, they did say, you're in if you want to. And I actually opted to go the high-tech route instead, but they let me sit in a week of this 3D modeling course with some software modeling a Roby house, and this is 1986, so these are some of the beginnings of computer software for such applications. So I also have urban design, urban planning experience. After working for the developers, I went kind of the other side of the aisle, other side of the fence, regulating some of the development for San Diego County. Then I went to San Francisco. Was the lead engineer and A&E person for redesigning buildings after abatement. Then sitting in critiques in Berkeley, and then I did a couple more commission design build projects while I'm starting to go through high-tech education, my master's and PhD. I was also a physics grad for a while, and before I decided to do the master's and PhD in computer engineering. And then, so I started, teaching when I was a grad student in 1988. Taught my first course. Didn't teach a whole lot until I was tenure track, and I was at Purdue University first, and then after IBM Research, and then went to Elizabethtown College, and so I've been there 21 years now. This is the year 2020, and recording this. I started in 1999, and so I've now had a whole series of student conferences that I started putting on before anybody else. So put on the first scholarship kind of day. We had a Dell Day for somewhat partying. It was fun, all the faculty and students. But it got a little out of hand, and then we just mutated to just a scholarship day. Now everybody does that. And then so I did 11 robotics symposiums, and then switched to 5 sustainability symposiums concurrent to launching a new sustainable design engineering program, and then architectural studies minor, and then switched to annual architectural critiques. And we have 5 judges, outside engineers and architects, a trustee, a former CEO of a large development company, and senior faculty. So it's a series of critiques, and then now I've got my own project I'm doing concurrently here. I bought a farm and do remodel. So that's more of a pet project, but it's a significant thing. I've got 4,000 man hours in, and do all the work myself. I'm still ongoing. I'm redoing the barn now, but see pictures of that. Then I wrote specs for the robotics machine intelligence lab, which is also the architectural studio. You see pictures of that. Then I'm traveling all around. I speak some Italian now. Looking at Italian architecture. Been 6 trips to Italy. Also taught a course in Italy. And then start seeing the links to courses I've taught here. I've taught 7 different architecture courses. So conceptual architecture from habitats to humanoids, and then later just called conceptual architecture. I consider that one of the 7 courses. The architectural research actually didn't even count that. So there's, I could say there's 9 courses I'm actually teaching. So then I'm getting high-tech stuff, rhinoceros and flamingo software modeling for students in 2006, and then I run these world servers in Minecraft. I've got students, college kids, and kids around the world, even some high school kids come into campus sometime, big competitions and design competitions and group builds. And as part of courses, you'll see in the portfolio. Then I get Revit, 3D modeling software, and anybody in architecture knows what that is. And BIM is very important. That's what makes it powerful for industry. Standard use is this concurrent database, relational database, linking all the visual objects to actual data that contractors can bid on and manufacturers can feed the literature into. And so students have gotten very good at using that. This is now almost 10 years they've been doing it. And they also poured into Lumion and Animate in Lumion and 3D Studio Max from early on. So I won't talk about details here. You can look later on. But so in the portfolio, you see different courses I teach, and about GreenCon as a keynote speaker in Japan, and then similar kind of thing in London, talking about some of these architectural things we're doing. Then just some other miscellaneous things here, but real-world projects, things without they're actually getting developed outside of the school. So try to make it real for the students, giving them awards, $6,000 in awards from sponsors, and then we have a minor that's very successful for a while, averaging 15 to 20 students in the program a year, and then we've got 2 individualized major, another one pending. One just graduated and got accepted in the 5 prestigious grad schools with funding. Then you'll see my travels. Venice, the 4th time. Venice is my favorite place to go. I've been on 14 international trips. I love Venice. So I could live in Venice. Then I'm a member of for 3 years representing the faculty on with senior staff and 2 presidents and the trustees. We're pulling back a little bit right now because the COVID virus, but there were some exciting new projects going on there for a while in the 3 years I was on that committee. Then lecture series. I'm writing a book on Frank Lloyd Wright, and I have a lecture series I've developed around that, and I've visited sites all in and around Chicago. 31 sites have video log, and then 11 around Phoenix. Then we've got virtual reality now, interacting one student with interacting with 3D Revit 3D software, and then working towards when things settle down, may take a year or 2, getting the major being official from being individualized majors in architecture to one that's in the catalog for everybody as we recruit students. My coursework, so I've had both architectural and engineering, had 200 credits of undergraduate work in just architecture and urban design, architectural engineering, before I went to grad school. And so I started at Penn State, did a lot of architectural engineering there, most of the first 3 years, and then went to the University of Texas for 2 years, did that, and then urban design in the University of California, San Diego. So back in my youth, these are projects I did. They display them on the display cases with the trophies and things, and my junior high, well, actually my grade school before that, they did some too. Model railroader. This was a statewide competition. I did get course credit in high school for this too, but I worked in the summer on it too. And I got third prize in this in Philadelphia, downtown competition from students, high schools all around Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and Delaware. You can see how it's laid out here. I think I would have won if I didn't actually finish and put the labels on and a roof on it. So I lost points for that. I was still putting the bushes on while my mom was driving me in the car down to the competition when I was 16. So this is just a project, college, arts interest house, and different drawings, ink on Mylar. It's an office building working drawings course, and pencil drawings, working drawing. We didn't have, well, there was CAD, but it certainly wasn't like Revit nowadays, and we didn't use CAD in 1979, 80. More working drawings. And while I was in Penn State, I had a small renovation business and small contracts. I didn't build these buildings ground up. It was just renovations inside, outside. I had a couple employees. This was roofing projects, but also rebuilding the trusses and some structural things. Then I was in Texas. I had an estimating business. I had several contracts I negotiated with different subcontractors. And then I wrote a computer program on my calculator, and then I would feed it into the beta test spreadsheet that I had, SuperCalc, later VisiCalc. I did my senior research thesis on this kind of thing when it was a novel thing in the beginning, but this was actually a business that paid for my schooling, so approximately $60 an hour and $2,015 is what it worked out to be. List of all the projects, estimated. So I had some experience, and before I even graduated my undergrad, I came on as assistant project manager. The project manager quit in 2 weeks. We had inside architect. These were the shells. I worked with the space planners to design some of the spaces, and my primary job was managing the 60 different contractors. We acted as a general contractor. I worked for the development company, and made quite a bit of money for them. There's also a real estate investment trust company and a leasing property management company, a number of other things that they had. This was my office. You see my calculator, my desk there, and my compact computer. That was a novel thing at the time. I had first prototype beta test SuperCalc spreadsheets and did real estate feasibility analysis on that and sold that to the developers. They liked it a lot, and then had a VisiCalc beta tester for that, and then I had a personal secretary. So I took that job and went to California and spun another thing working for a developer there, and I pretty much did everything in that office, including putting the prospectus together for investors all over the world and negotiating many thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars of contracts, and having a lot to say with the design. Worked very closely with the architects. Sit there, picked all the blue Ford glass, picked the colors of the concrete, picked the shapes of things. It was just going to be ugly little tilt-up boxes until I insisted when I talked to investors first. Picked all the trees, picked a lot of interior things. There's a full-time architecture firm doing a lot of the things, but I was very much instrumental in the design, and I had control over all the money, so that certainly helped. Beautiful project, got nominated for an Orchid Award in San Diego, mixed-use, high-tech manufacturing with a speculative office building next to it. Beautiful space out for eating, courtyard and piazza. So I was young and I decided, okay, I'm going to go back to school a little bit more. I kind of got tired working for the developers a little bit. And so I kept doing a little renovation stuff of my own. But then I decided to go back for urban design and planning. And so this is a campus plan I did. And you can see that. And I used some of the knowledge I had for speculatively doing land speculation with the developers. Urban design history course here with the professor. I actually ended up designing and renovating part of his house. So I simultaneously worked 30 hours a week for a year for the San Diego Planning Commission, a special branch of it for local agency formation commission, all district formation in all towns, and pretty intense political things. I had to read environmental impact reports, listen to heated discussions with attorneys presenting for developers and people lining up complaining in big meetings. Then I did this renovation project simultaneously while my professor went to Italy, back home where he's from, and I was there a couple months, lived in the house, and designed and renovated it. And this is what it looked like. His wife was a professor too. They're both professors. He was a professor at UC San Diego. His wife's professor, UC Irvine. They retired in Berkeley. They live there in Berkeley now. I made a curved wall. That was a little tricky there, and the woodwork was kind of tricky. Then I moved up to San Francisco, and I worked in a engineering consulting firm there, structural and environmental engineering. Got a couple of EPA certifications. Worked on the Bay Area rapid transit system and a bunch of schools in San Francisco, as well as a college. The University of California, Santa Cruz. I like going down there all the time. So then I'm going back to get high-tech education now, and so I left one slide out here where there was another year in San Francisco where I was a physics grad and taught astronomy, and I was trying to decide what kind of high-tech I would want to do. And I simultaneously worked on a framing crew renovating an old Victorian across the street for where I lived. And I was like journeyman level with 2 young apprentices working for me, and just hourly kind of thing. I wasn't the lead guy on the project. I mean, it could have been, but I was just doing it part-time. And then, so now this is back in Pennsylvania, and so I'm getting my master's degree now in engineering science, and I'm doing this project, renovating different parts of this house. The whole ceiling was sagging quite a bit. The roof wasn't collapsing, but the they had 1.5 inch plaster ceiling hanging from 2x4s, and then and the attic was being used also, so the whole ceiling was about to cave in. So I took the whole thing down, and then I made somewhat of a truss system for the roof structure to be solid as well as hold up the new ceiling. And then in the picture on the right, you see I put in these skylights, a cascade of windows. I let some sunlight in there. And all the finish work I did too. So designing, I'm an architect, engineer, and builder on these projects. I raised the ceilings, did all the finish work. Skylights. Also work in the bathrooms and outside landscaping. Didn't take photos of all that. This is a dollhouse I made to scale of my brother's first house when he had his children. My younger brother, he had his children younger than me. They're now in their 30s with their own children. Then this project here, this is a labor of love on my farmland. Bought a little farm, little farmette with a barn, 1877 farmhouse, and I've been doing all the architecture, engineering, and construction. Only contracted a couple things, the concrete pour and the shingles. My son's been working with me since he was a little boy. You can see the before and after here. I made some foam models. My son later put these into Revit. First he did it in Minecraft, and then he put it into Revit later on. Different design choices. The first design choice was to renovate the attic with a shed kind of dormer, but the headspace was a little too cramped. The second choice was nice, but we wanted a little bit more floor space. Third choice, which we ended up doing, is more space. You can see the furniture and people in there. It works out good. See some of the details. We dug the foundation. The foot is 60 cubic yards with a shovel, just for fun. Certainly a bit cheaper per hour with a backhoe if you calculate it, but doing it for free with my son. So put in a continuous footing, did not step it down because of dissimilar soils of clay and sand. Put reinforcing steel in, which you don't typically see in homes, but it was just extra reinforcing. Laid all the block, reinforced that. Didn't hang anything too much off of the old house, so you see we're actually shoring up the old house and underpinning it in places. So you could see the batter boards laying it all out at first, and then then the block and parge coat on the outside, and French drain, foundation drain. Oversize some of the structural members just to minimize deflection and the feel of, make it feel a little sturdier. Also, I have a parlor grand piano, and wanted to hold that nice and firm. So a little bit higher ceilings than normal. I like to do that. Have to deviate a little bit from the standard 8-foot ceilings, and therefore have to deal with the sheetrock and blocking a little differently, but it makes for a nicer space. So there's a barn also, blocking a little bit of the view, but blasted through a hole there, and later retrofitted some heavy timber structure to hold it all up. Framing the views from early on. Bands of windows. I've always been interested in Frank Lloyd Wright works since I was a young boy, but didn't specifically copy anything, or probably was inspired by things I saw of his. It's hard to say exactly when you're building something new who you're referencing in your mind. So framing the views in different places, kind of a cathedral ceiling in the one bedroom that my wife works and sleeps in. And detailed eaves and soffits, fascia made of wood. See a rake here, the gable ends, extend them out. It's just architecturally more pleasing to do that. Quite a bit fitting the old to new when the old is not plumb or square, or even parts of the building are not perpendicular to each other. And so trying to line up new and old is not a minor task. You can see the interface here. I do teach lead things. You can see a lead reflection that I did here. This is pre-painting some of the fascia boards before they go up, and my daughter helping out a little bit. She was born after we started this, and helping out more recently, painting her room. She did that. It's a big project. This is in the old house, stripping everything down. You can see here what it looks like with the barn now. We've done other renovations since then. We've taken down that shed roof, and it's actually nice like that. But we used that for a good long time. And we're renovating the top of the barn now. I have a bunch of windows. Now at E-Town, started doing architectural projects in 2006 with a freshman seminar on architecture, and then students doing independent research. Got flamingo and rhinoceros for the school. This is a real-world project where the students were asked to do some preliminary work that was then handed over to the architects for this lobby. Then also we're looking at expanding the basketball facilities and the old gym, where I was a faculty mentor for the basketball team for over 10 years with Coach Schlosser, our winningest coach in history, all sports. And and so worked closely with him. Eventually got a new student wellness center out of it, but unfortunately didn't renovate much of the interior. And the coach retired by the time all the renovations happened. But still, the students benefit from it. A little more architecture work, doing some kind of space station modeling. This is my lab and architectural studio. It was originally a chemistry lab, and then when the building was getting renovated, I was writing a NSF equipment grant, and then the development office asked me if they could spin it into a fundraising thing, so I gave them the drawings, and it got into the fundraising for the $22 million new building. And then so I ended up with lab and studio, both robotics and machine intelligence lab. I teach computer engineering quite a bit, possibly more known for that by most people, but architecture also. And I wrote the design specifications for this, and it's worked out pretty nicely. So now I frequently go to Italy, and Venice is my favorite, and so you can see the number of times here. And my good friend now, a professor there, and his son, Ettore, and this is my son, Joseph, the older boy, looking at some architecture, different places, different schools, and just architecture everywhere in Italy. This is my first time in Italy to Genoa and Portofino. I helped with a conference there. Actually, ended up helping organize it while I was there. I gave the closing talk. I hadn't planned to do that. I was presenting research, robotics actually. And then this is the second trip back to Trento for another conference, and this stayed in Rovereto, just south of Trento. Rovereto, it's all in Trentino Alta region, up near Austria, near the Brenner Pass, the Dolomites of the Swiss Alps, Tyrolean region. This is my 2009 trip, where I went to teach a course, a PhD course, at the University of Trento in Trentino Alta, near the Brenner Pass, Trentino Alta region. It's Tyrolean. They actually speak German at the higher altitudes. Uberbosen with Bolzano speak Italian down lower. This is the town right just north of Trento. This was 3 weeks, a little over 3 weeks I was there. I had hoped to make it a family vacation, but that didn't work out, and then I actually got injured before I left. Had surgery. I was on crutches. I flew into Zurich. I spent 10 hours driving over the Alps. Thought that would be fun to do. It was kind of fun, but by myself. And then on the way back, I actually got a kidney stone and blue dens and a spa, and that was a whole other story there. It actually turned out very good also, but it was very interesting, and it was a great course, and the students and there were researchers and faculty in my course listening to me, and then they would all take turns cooking dinner for me each night. So it was a very nice experience. Italian people are very welcoming. It was a great experience. I look forward to doing the same thing again. This is my 2011 trip, where I went to Rome and presented at a conference there, and then studied all of the Roman architecture as well as all the other beautiful architecture from other eras. That's also when I first established a relationship with the Pantheon Institute in Rome. They helped us launch our architectural studies minor, and we're talking to them about some more opportunities soon, bringing students or possibly teaching something at the Pantheon Institute. I stayed in a monastery here. I went by myself, and then after being in Rome, seeing the Vatican Museum, St. Peter's, I went back to Padova, visited my good friend and his son there, and his wife, Monica. She's a doctor of infectious diseases and a professor. And my friend is a professor of engineering at University of Trento and University of Padua. And then 2014, back to Venice for the third time, this time with my son. And he also came and stayed in Padua with me. And then we went to Florence, Firenze, and visited the School of Architecture at the University of Florence. See in the library there. Also visiting Statue of David and the Museum of many beautiful marble sculptures. And this is the most recent time to Italy, back to Venice for the fourth time. Then in 2011, I created this sustainable design option in the BS engineering program. It later, due to local industry demand, was changed into environmental engineering. A little less architectural. It was meant to be what it is, and then the architectural studies minor came after this. Now in 2012, I got from Revit licenses, site licenses. Typically cost $5,000 a license. Students can get their own version, their own license for 3 years on their laptops, but we have the bigger version on the machines. I had to upgrade all the machines to make it work in Studio, and now we have students doing all kinds of things. They also port into Lumion and 3D Studio Max and other programs for animation and other things. Then in 2013, I was a keynote speaker in Japan, an architectural talk, and we stayed for a couple weeks. Kyoto mainly, so almost 3 weeks altogether. Then we went to Hawaii and then California. It was a 40-day journey. And you can see whole talks I have on Japanese architecture. A link in the previous slide. And many, many pictures. You can see more there. Now in 2012, 13, 14, 15, we had a sustainability symposium, and it was a group effort, a number of people doing architectural things and other types of engineering things. We had hydroponic gardens and Minecraft server things and Revit things and all kinds of things. Did a charrette. Then these Minecraft servers scaled up to being multi-world servers. I couldn't host them on my own machines anymore. They were public at first, and ran all kinds of plugins and had a concurrent database server to roll back griefing and had rules and a ranking system. And if you know Minecraft, all the different bells and whistles you can have to make it nice, fun, safe play for everybody without anybody getting too upset. There's survival world, and you can turn on the monsters if you like in some of the places. Although mainly I was focusing on creative content. I had my freshmen do things. In 2010, my son made all of this when he was very young. Became one of the top Minecraft designers on a big Minecraft site. I forget the name of it. They show all those people, keep downloading all of his worlds. Had several courses of freshman students. They would get into groups and make their own towns. We had a green, sustainable towns, and then another year Japanese towns. We also had group builds with other students and other courses, even high school students coming in sometime. Rebuilt the Master's Center. Had the Japanese towns. These are the detailed requirements for a paper to be written by the students to scholarly standards for the freshman seminar. All freshman seminars do this, and so this year, in this particular year, for a number of years, this is one particular case for Japanese towns built, architecture and urban design, reflecting on the understanding of the culture as well as the tradition and standards in architecture. And here is a sample paper written to scholarly standards that the freshmen are required to do as part of this course, which was a mix of both judo, philosophy and technique, and architecture. And then, written paper developed research and written based on findings and in-depth research, scholarly research through the library and other means, as well as firsthand experience and learning hands-on. This slide demonstrates the interdisciplinary nature of much of what I do. This is Mahalo Bhattacharya. She's given me a list of words here that speak to the Japanese culture, and it certainly influences their architecture, and then influenced Frank Lloyd Wright when he visited and lived there, and throughout his life, and so the spiritual aspect of these words, these key terms, and the cultural significance of them certainly factors into the architecture. So now I'm teaching a new course that I've done now 6 or 7 years in a row. After I had taught the judo course for 10 years, the judo and architecture combined freshman seminar. I also had another freshman seminar before that was called Defining the Limits of Machine Intelligence. Did that a couple of years. Did the judo and architecture one for 10 years. Now it's been going on maybe 7 or 8 years. I got to look back for this purely architecture course called Conceptual Architecture. And there's Japanese design requirements in that course. You can see some of the models here. I have them learn about Frank Lloyd Wright and also about Japanese architecture. Then they have to make a Japanese style house, as well as a barn frame, and then a barn, and then a farmhouse, and then their final design should draw inspiration from all of that. These are my first-term freshman architecture students doing modeling, and with Frank Lloyd Wright theme also running through this course. They do barns and barn frames, and also an Ingawa, Japanese covered porch type house, part of the house, Japanese design, the Ken design system, Japanese. Another picture of the studio lab. So on my website, you can find this architecture page and links to all of my architecture courses, and learn more about all of these courses and all the content if you like. And so you can see many videos and many other things if you like on this website here, and also my YouTube channel. And then there's publications related to some of that work. You could see Osaka, Japan, and London, England. And then the Architectural Studies minor is launched, and it's pretty easily woven with the engineering majors. It's a very nice complement to civil engineering, which is new now, and always a nice complement to environmental engineering, especially with sustainable design, and also mechanical engineering too, the HVAC designers. And that's becoming a very critical thing now in 2020, knowing how to design fresh air exchanges, filtering, how to design the building both passively and actively, design HVAC, heating and cooling, to mitigate contaminants, as well as make it, natural daylighting and other things that you combine. Then we had these collaborations with the Social Enterprise Institute when it was mainly housed in the college, and had a real-world project funded with prizes for the students to design a mobile wellness center. And then we had another one we worked with the government of Sierra Leone for health clinics when Ebola was going on. And then 2015, I presented a related poster to the Elizabethtown College trustees. We had a competition of students making conceptual designs of the Sports Fitness and Wellness Center. 22 judges, outside architects, engineers, faculty, and staff of the college. Now, I've been part of the sustainability committee since its inception as a strategic planning kind of thing initially, and now it's an elected committee. But initially we had some ideas, and I was a couple senior staff and four faculty members. And so I have a report here you can look at, lots of details, lots of things. Here are the details of the Sustainability Committee report that I authored and organized all this, so you can drill down this if you like. We've got courses and all the different faculty that can contribute potentially, programs that can contribute, where the expertise is, teaching and research spaces that could contribute to this, scholarship available, clubs, competitions, outreach, collaborations outside the college, internships, public relations and press, and then faculty and staff collaborations, which I think is very important. Keep us from getting a little too tribal, especially when times are tough. And now we have our annual critiques of architecture, and studio defenses, and up to 12 judges, including architects, engineers, senior faculty, and staff. There's a lot of details on this page of student projects. If you go to this website, you can see videos and portfolios of the students going back many years, many projects. You go to my website, see different lecture series I have, also all the different courses, 7 different courses, links to assignments and sample projects. Link to my architecture theory course or lecture series, and became a course. My lecture series on Frank Lloyd Wright, also a book I'm writing, starting 2018, both. My name is Joseph Wunderlich. I'm a professor of engineering, architecture, and computer science, and this is a summary of organic architecture design principles by Frank Lloyd Wright from many sources. And my experience, I'm born in 1961, have education, architectural engineering, and urban design, pure architecture projects until age 30, and then a lot of other things since then, including lots of high tech. So this is conform to the site is the first principle of sun, topography, environment. Pinwheel planes, the cruciform, the Prairie School certainly uses that, and around a broad central chimney with long cantilevers, overhangs, and balconies. The folded plane, like origami, so we're looking for inspiration from Japanese things, which he was doing from very early on. 1892 or 1893 Chicago World's Fair exhibition with Japanese architecture. Then he visited Japan in 1906 and 1913, and then lived in Japan for 3 full years over a 5-year span, building the Imperial Hotel and doing other things. So simple geometries from his early youth, Froebel blocks, his mother using Froebel methods, homeschooling him. Always a human scale is the scale that he put things to. Open floor plan, destroying the Victorian box type rooms of his time, flow between rooms inside and outside, bands of windows framing views like the Japanese Engawa. Materials in nature, use materials in the natural state. Form and function R1, harmony, not one following the other secondarily, like yin and yang, from Chinese philosophy. So Japanese are Buddhist and have Shintoism and Buddhism, both religions, and the Buddhism is more of a philosophy, and the Shinto is more of the spirits, rooted in Chinese philosophy. And so they're complementary form and function, like yin and yang. A unified whole, inside and out, orchestrating the sun. Very first green kind of thought at all, way before anybody invented that kind of thinking. Real. John Muir was existing at that same time. I actually went to the University of Wisconsin around the same time as Frank Lloyd Wright, but he wasn't an architect. Bring nature out of materials, but also innovate. So textile blocks, modular Ken design system, which you can see is inspiring him at times. The structure of that, the modularity of that. structural art. It was referring in some of his writings to the Japanese woodblock prints that he collected throughout his life, quite a few, and inspired him. And he admitted to that inspiring him. Other things he would not admit to. Louis Sullivan and the affordable blocks he would admit to inspiring him, but the parallels between his architecture and Japanese architecture, he was just saying it's because they're of like mind, but his is original. Soft, warm, optimistic color tones of earth, assimilating fixtures into the structure. That goes for the light fixtures as well as built-in furniture. Many plants and planters. Architecture is music, both literally in his buildings. Put places always for pianos. Most places, or actually put them in certain buildings, organs and pianos. And metaphorically also in the structure of the structural art of the music and the rhythm and the organization, like a symphony. And his father was a musician and a preacher. Also, he was a lawyer too, and he was highly educated from Colgate University, bachelor's and master's degree. When nobody really had that kind of education at the time. Also, architect mentor Louis Sullivan, which you can see some of the organic type of sensibilities of Frank Lloyd Wright, coming from Louis Sullivan, or beginning with Louis Sullivan. So Louis Sullivan was certainly an influence, and lots of the arts and crafts movement, first in England and then the United States, was going on at that time, and you'll see that in Frank Lloyd Wright's work. And also, he lived in Italy for a year. You can see some of that, but mostly Japan. So from early on, seeing in the World's Fair, and then visiting twice, and then living there 3 years, and collecting Japanese prints. And it's in his writings too. He just was very prideful and didn't want to say that he's making Japanese architecture, and he wasn't. It was very original, but there was certainly a lot of things in common. So you can see some pictures here. I took a picture of this tree and of this path in the Rita, and then you see some key words from a colleague, Mahawa Bhattacharya. She's the head of our Japanese program, and there's keywords for my students over the past 15 years or so, maybe longer, 20. Been working 21 years at Elizabethtown College. And then you see this gate, the Shinto gate on the far right there. That's a tractor trailer down at the bottom to give you an idea of the scale. This is in Kyoto, and my son on the right. And this gate symbolizes the entrance from the real world to the spirit world in the Shinto religion. And then one note on the bottom left here is the compression and release. It's not part of organic design, organic architecture, but it's commonly used by Frank Lloyd Wright as a psychological method to cramp or hide people, make them feel a little bit uncomfortable. You can't find the entry, or your low ceilings, not well lit, but then you really feel the impact, the drama of the destination architecture is magnified. Frank Lloyd Wright's youth was influenced, of course, by his father and mother. His mother homeschooled him using affordable methods. Froebel invented kindergarten in Germany before Frank Lloyd Wright was born. Froebel was also influenced by Taoism and Buddhism. And Japanese Shinto is rooted in Chinese Taoism mixed with indigenous Japanese religions when it came over from China to Japan. Shinto gods see in everything nature, and Frank Lloyd Wright would later love much about Japan. His father was a preacher, lawyer, school superintendent, teacher, musician, mostly a musician, although he made a living as a preacher, and not just in the Unitarian Church, but other churches too. And but mostly as a musician, and he published a book in music, and Frank Lloyd Wright was very much influenced by that throughout his life. Frank Lloyd Wright's mother was in this Unitarian church also, and the Unitarians believe love of nature and God and everything. And so there's similar parallels there. And Frank Lloyd Wright grew up in Wisconsin, mostly also lived in New England some. And in parallel here, on this slide, I show Maria Montessori, and the Montessori schools were influenced by Froebel in parallel to Frank Lloyd Wright's development, in the same time period. So future designers I show as being influenced by both Frank Lloyd Wright and perhaps Montessori methods. These are the majority of the references that I've used for this lecture series, and they're worth taking a look at each of them individually when you have time. I've organized this lecture series into 7 parts based on 2 main things, mostly on his life, of course, and significant things that have happened to him and things that he developed during those times, but also things in the world and in his life personally that are going on that define where he's at any given time, including 2 world wars. He's born right after the Civil War, lives through 2 world wars and the Great Depression, and the Cold War after that, and then he has 3 marriages and a mistress who's murdered, lives in Japan for 3 years, lives in Italy for a year, has a very complicated life full of things, and 500 designs that are built, many of them still preserved, and over 1,000 designs overall. So his life certainly needs to be parsed into pieces just to digest everything that he's done, and I believe these are logical groupings of time and his ages. And you can find a lot more on my website, including a number of things I teach in architecture, materials and methods course, architecture theory course, the Frank Lloyd Wright course, freshman seminar on conceptual architecture, different studio course lectures on lighting design, acoustics, and urban design. Vary that each time. And then links to each of the lecture series, plus a link to all student projects you can find on a whole other page, and high-tech integrated into it. I also teach quite a bit in computer engineering. I'm perhaps known mostly for that over the past 20-something years. And then on my YouTube channel, more and more I've been posting things there. I have a whole high-tech lecture series, my architecture thing I'm talking about right now, so you can see a video log of 31 Frank Lloyd Wright sites I visited in and around Chicago, and I don't yet have a video log of 11 sites I just visited in and around Phoenix, but that'll be coming soon. This is a video log lecture that you can see on my YouTube channel now, where I visited 31 different sites, also a couple of my wife's family's homes that seem to have been inspired by Frank Lloyd Wright design methods. And so you can take a look at that if you like. We actually help out with some conceptual ideas for the college of new things, including here you can see potential new Cedar Hill housing campus, assuming we will soon have graduate students potentially living here, physician's assistants, and growing occupational therapy programs, as well as new graduate programs and certificates. Unfortunately, 2020 coronavirus mandated some online, much more online, but we're all geared up for that already. You can see plenty on my YouTube channel and my website of all different formats that I use for doing that. I prefer face-to-face, but we are fully equipped, I think better than most, to do things online. We also now have virtual reality equipment that we've been implementing in the laboratory. This is in our 2020 Scholarship Day of teaching assistant here with 8 students, architecture ported into virtual reality after being rendered in Revit. He also had a separate independent project you can see here where he rendered the entire campus in Revit and then ported it into virtual reality for present, and also 1924 from archival images provided by the library. My YouTube channel is constantly getting more and more videos now, especially since I'm doing more and more online. So you can take a look at that. There's something new almost every day now on that. I maintain my website and have a ton of things for you to take a look at in there. All the computer engineering is a wealth of information, as well as the architecture and the personal stuff too, if you like. I've got my CV up there. I've got all my syllabi. I've taught 38 different courses, as well as the 7 architectural courses since I very first taught a course in 1988 when I was a physics grad, actually, before I went back to Pennsylvania doing my master's and PhD in computer engineering. And lastly, if you want to get a PowerPoint version for some reason of this, that's where the audio is embedded. If you want to download the file and play it like that, although I'll be uploading this also to my YouTube channel, and a version you can find on my website. So presumably in a couple hundred years, one of these versions will still exist someplace.